Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back into the process. It's been a minute since we did a show, but we are back on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. I am your host, Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit that like button while you're here. Hit that subscribe button as well. If you're already subscribed, be sure to turn on your notifications by hitting the notification bell so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. As you guys all know, follow Alabama football recruiting and just recruiting in general really closely. National Signing Day, the first signing day of the 2024 recruiting cycle, is closely approaching, with it being on Wednesday on December 20th. We will have that day fully covered by touchdownalabama.com with our National Signing Day show, so be sure to stay on the lookout for more information on that, as we will provide it throughout our multiple means of communication. But on today's episode, I want to talk about a couple of different things concerning the Crimson Tide's 2024 recruiting class, with them looking at a couple of flip targets as they look towards that signing day on Wednesday. We'll also talk about some guys who the Crimson Tide will host this weekend who are currently in the transfer portal, because the Crimson Tide are going to continue to work that portal. We have seen it work to their benefit in the past. As look at their current roster of guys like Jermaine Burton, who are having an impact on the Crimson Tide in their race to another national championship as they look towards the college football playoff when they take on the Michigan Wolverines. But like I said, I do want to talk about some flip targets for the Crimson Tide, and that is what we're going to start today's show off with. We're going to talk about Crimson Tide's 5-star wide receiver target now in Perry Thompson, who was once verbally committed to the Crimson Tide. Thompson, a 5-star wide receiver out of Foley High School in Foley, Alabama, who's had a very interesting recruitment. Like I said, he was verbally committed to the Crimson Tide. I remember we caught up with them in June in Foley at the Foley 707 showdown. He said he was locked in with the Crimson Tide. He basically flipped his commitment, I think not even a month later, to the Auburn Tigers. And it was really interesting because he verbally committed to Alabama when they became the first SEC school to offer him very, very early in this recruitment. And you knew when he committed to the Crimson Tide back then that this was a kid who did not really get to enjoy his recruitment before he gave the Crimson Tide that commitment. But he started to enjoy it once he was verbally committed to the Crimson Tide. And Auburn was one of the schools that stood out to him, and that's one of the reasons why he flipped his commitment. They stood out. He liked what he was hearing from Auburn. He liked the direction that they was headed in under Coach Hugh Freeze. But Nick Saban and Alabama did not give up their pursuit for Thompson once he flipped his commitment to Auburn. He visited Alabama as an Auburn commit, of course, coming to games. He also just stayed in contact with Alabama as Alabama's Crimson Tide's head football coach Nick Saban, Crimson Tide's defensive coordinator Kevin Steele, and Alabama's wide receiver coach Hallman Wiggins actually visited Perry Thompson as they continue to just travel across the country and visit top recruits this month. They were in Foley and had an opportunity to see Thompson as well, which is what we are looking at right now when you guys see that photo of Thompson, his family, along with Wiggins, along with Steele. So what does this picture tell us? Of course, it tells us that Nick Saban and Alabama has a spot for Perry Thompson if he wants to flip his commitment back to Alabama. They still like what they see out of the 6'4" wide receiver out of Foley, who's really impressive. And what is not to like about what this guy brings to the table? When you look at him, you look at his frame, you're like, whoa, this guy is going to be a monster once you get him into a weight room and you just see that muscular frame that he already has, that 6'4" frame, along with the speed, the athleticism, the physicality that he plays with, because he's one of those rare guys who plays at a high level, like 6'8" football in Alabama, but he plays on both sides of the football. As safety, he will come down and hit you, and you want a guy like that at wide receiver who's not just this big and long guy, but he's a guy who's not afraid to be a physical prospect. So I think he's a guy Alabama really likes in his 2024 recruiting class. Obviously, I think there's still a spot for him in Alabama's 2024 recruiting class if he wanted to flip his commitment, but we'll see what will happen with them once he announces a final decision to sign with the school of his choice on December 20th at 10 a.m. at Foley High School in their live area. It looks as if Alabama is giving him something to think about. He has been very huge in Auburn's recruiting push in this 2024 recruiting cycle, helping them recruit guys like fellow 5-star wide receiver Cam Coleman and just different guys across the country. It seems like Thompson was very involved with those guys becoming Auburn Tigers commits. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday. Things are starting to become very, very intriguing with Nick Saban and Alabama showing him that he at least has a spot if he wanted to flip his commitment from the Auburn Tigers to the Crimson Tide. That opportunity is still on the table for the 5-star wide receiver, so we'll see what happens with Thompson. Another in-state 2024 prospect the Crimson Tide are trying to flip at the moment is Kevin Riley, a 2024 4-star running back out of Tuscaloosa County High School in Northport, Alabama. Riley is easily one of the more explosive running backs in the 2024 recruiting class. I reacted to his film, I think, a couple of months ago, and when you look at his film, it's hard to find better film in terms of being an explosive back, a guy who just accelerates very quickly through a hole and just reaches top speed really, really fast. And there's a lot to like about him in terms of his potential at the next level. Of course, Alabama signed 2 running backs during the 2023 recruiting cycle in Richard Young, in Justice Haynes, and it never fails that once Alabama signs a deep running back class, a deep quarterback class, at those positions, you always seem to struggle in the next recruiting cycle to pull in a guy because they see all of that depth. You have to be a special running back to come to Alabama's running back room right now and get immediate playing time with guys like Justice Haynes, Jalen Milroe, most likely expected to return. You have Richard Young as well. It's an uphill battle to get into that rotation. I'm pretty sure that is a lot of running backs to the Crimson Tide looking in the 2024 recruiting class are considering, and you can't blame them for that. I always tell recruits when they are considering different schools, you always want a path to playing time. Not saying that immediate playing time should be at the top of your list all of the time. I'm just saying you at least want a path to say, hey, I'm going to be set up to at least be in a good position to compete for playing time by my sophomore, junior year, and that way I can get on the field and not be struggling to get playing time and possibly have to hit the portal as a result. You definitely want a path. But Kevin Riley is a guy, like I said, right in Alabama's backyard. Alabama's coaching staff have built a close relationship with him. He told me before he committed to Miami, which is where he's committed right now. He said he had a close relationship with Alabama. He said they are right in his backyard. He can go there pretty much anytime, which is why he's going to take that official visit to Tuscaloosa on this weekend to visit with the Crimson Tide before he makes a final decision. And I think this is a huge visit for Alabama. Like I said, they want to get a running back verbally committed in this 2024 recruiting class, and I think this is why they want to have Riley on campus this weekend. And we'll see what happens, see if Alabama can change his mind. The portal has been good to the Crimson Tide in the past, been able to pull guys from the portal who can come in and make an immediate impact. You have guys like Jamison Williams, Jermaine Burton, who has stayed with the Crimson Tide, which is something I guess is kind of different from the portal guy actually stays another year and becomes an impact player. But the Crimson Tide are shopping in the transfer portal as they continue to recruit guys in the 2024 recruiting class and future recruiting classes. They are not missing out on opportunities to add talent to the roster via the transfer portal. And it looks early on to be that the Crimson Tide want to focus on the edge position. When you look at Alabama's current roster, you have guys like Chris Broswell and Dallas Turner who could depart from Alabama's program after this season concludes, after we see what happens with them in the college football playoff. And when you look at Alabama's roster at the edge position, there's a lot of depth there, there's a lot of talent there, but there's a lot of young, unproven talent. Of course, if you can go into the transfer portal and add a guy who can have an immediate impact, which is what Nick Saban and Alabama's coaching staff is looking for, that is what Nick Saban talks about when he's looking at guys in the portal. We are looking at guys who can come in and play immediately and make an immediate impact in the locker room and on the field. And that is exactly what they are doing when it comes to outside linebackers, when it comes to the edge position, as they will host 2 top edge transfers on this weekend. When you take a look at guys like Fidel Diggs out of Texas A&M, who actually had 4 sacks this season. 2 of those sacks came against Alabama, as he was able to get to Jalen Milroe, and he's got about 6'4", 260 pounds, has that frame what Alabama is looking for at the outside linebacker position, a guy who has played in the SEC, so he has that experience, and he he's a guy who I think could come in and make an immediate impact for the Crimson Tide at that outside linebacker position, especially if they were to, as expected, lose Dallas Turner and Chris Broswell as well. You want a veteran guy, a guy who has proven himself in a league like the SEC, and for Dale Diggs, I think that is why he's on this list. That is why Alabama is hosting him this weekend. They're also hosting Trey Moore, a UTSA transfer, a guy who's one of the top edges in the transfer portal as well. Had 14 sacks this past season, a very productive guy at the edge position, has that similar frame to what Alabama's looking for at that position as well. So right now we know the edge is going to be a priority for the Crimson Tide when it comes to the portal, and it seems to be because they want to add experience just in case they lose Dallas Turner and Chris Broswell to the NFL, because those are two talented edge rushers that they have on their team right now. Behind those guys, you have guys like Keanu Coote, you have Jeremiah Alexander, you have Quay Russaw, you have Keon Keeley, you have Jeremiah Alexander. I think at least like four out of those 5 guys I just named were 5-star recruits coming out of high school, but they are unproven guys. Of course, you want those guys to develop and hopefully make an impact on your team, but you also want a guy who has that experience to come in. That is the reason why Alabama and so many other teams go into the portal. But we'll see what happens with the Crimson Tide hosting both of those guys on this weekend. We'll see if they want to add them to their program as they continue to try to add talent that can make an immediate impact. They have lost a couple of guys to the portal as well. Wouldn't surprise me if they went into the portal and tried to get some defensive linemen as well, with them losing some of their defensive lineman depth to the portal as of late, with guys choosing to enter the transfer portal before the Crimson Tide take on the Michigan Wolverines in the college football playoff. But that is the updates I want to provide you guys with on today. More updates will be coming to TouchdownAlabama.com as we continue to try to provide you guys with the best recruiting coverage possible. So be sure to stay locked in. TouchdownAlabama.com. Be sure to subscribe, because we will be cracking out more recruiting content over the next couple of days, as I will be in Hattiesburg, Mississippi on Saturday for the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Game with several Alabama commits in action, including 5-star prospects Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams. We'll have updates, stats, highlights from that game, also interviews and updates from both of those guys as they look to be joining Alabama's program in the future. Jalen Milroe set to sign on next week and enroll at the University of Alabama in January. Ryan Williams will push his off to February. It looks as if he wants to think about things a little bit more after reclassifying for the 2024 recruiting class. But Crimson Tide still has his verbal commitment. He's locked in with Alabama at the moment. We'll have more of an update on him after this weekend, after we catch up with them at that game. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. Like I said, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you leave. If you're not already a subscriber to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube, head over to TouchdownAlabama.com to stay updated on all of our written content. Be sure to pick up a subscription there as well, so you can stay updated with all of our breaking news coverage, recruiting, and team coverage as Alabama prepares for the college football playoff coming up on New Year's Day. Also, be sure to download the Touchdown Alabama app. The app is located in the Apple App Store, also located in the Google Play Store if you have an Android device as well. As always, I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.